All right, so we are starting chapter 1 today. Chapter 1 is all about equations and expressions. So the first thing we look at in chapter 1 is how to use the order of operations. So that's why I had you do that warm-up. So when you do the order of operations, what you want to do is follow Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally. And as you follow them, parentheses and exponents are grouped together, multiplication and division is grouped together, and addition and subtraction is grouped together. And what I mean by grouped together is you do all the parentheses and exponents left to right. Then you do all the multiplication and division left to right. And then you do the addition and subtraction. And again, the order we do them is left to right, like reading a book. So in example number 1, we have 8 times 3 and 2 times 4. So left to right, 8 times 3 is 24. Minus 2 times 4, which is 8. 24 minus 8 is 16. So number 1 is 16. And number 2, left to right, we have subtraction, addition, division. So we're going to divide to start. So 8 minus 4 comes down, plus comes down, 6 divided by 3 is 2. And now order of operations left to right says I subtract 4 from 8 first. So you get 4 plus 2, which is 6. And number 3, there's no parentheses or exponents. So left to right, we start by dividing. 24 divided by 12 is 2. So we're going to bring down the times 4 and divide it by 3. Left to right, 2 times 4 happens first. So then we have divided by 3. And 8 divided by 3, you could leave it as a fraction of 8/3. Or you can write it out for me as a decimal. But because 8/3 is repeating, you want to make sure you put 2.6 and you need to have a repeating bar above the 6. So if you're going to write it as a decimal, you need to have the repeating bar. In number 4, exponents come first. So we're going to take 8 squared, which is 64, and bring along the plus 12 divided by 4. Left to right, you're going to multiply 3 times 64 and divide 12 by 4. So 3 times 64 is 192. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So we get 192 plus 3. This is my flag. Hey. Okay. Bye. So 192 and adding 3 to that is 195. And number 5, again, left to right, the first thing that happens is exponents. So 3 squared is 9. Here's where everybody tries to cancel these together. But the problem is, before you have the 9 minus the 9, you have to take the 18 and divide it by 9 because division happens before subtraction. So it's 27 plus 2 minus 9 plus 1. So that's 29 minus 9 plus 1. So 20 plus 1 is 21. In 6, we have parentheses here. That comes first. So we're going to do 40 plus 24, which is 64. And then continuing left to right, we get parentheses again. So we write divided by 8 and minus. Now we're going to work inside here. 2 cubed is the same as 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. Adding 1, you get 9. Minus 1. Left to right, you divide. 64 divided by 8 is 8. Now you have 8 minus 9, which is negative 1, minus 1, which is negative 2. Okay, so again, a large part of what we're doing is reviewing those order of operations. And what you'll notice is there were keywords in here. Those words are simplify and expression. We're going to talk about those words over the next couple days. And expression is anything without an equal sign. And simplify means to clean it up. So we have 3 new vocabulary words. One of those words is a variable. A variable is usually a letter. It can also be a symbol, and it represents a number. A variable or symbol that represents a number. In 3x plus 1, x is the variable. And 3x plus 1, x is the variable. An expression is anything that contains more than or one variable. So it has to at least have one variable. And to evaluate is when we substitute in a number for a variable in an expression and follow the order of operations. number 1, it says evaluate k minus 18 squared minus 4k equals 6. So everywhere we have a k in the problem, we're going to replace it with 6. So everywhere you had a k in the problem, you're going to replace it with 6. So you get 6 minus 18 squared minus 4 times 6. Now we're simply going to follow the order of operations like we did in the warm-up. So 6 minus 18 is negative 12 squared minus 4 times 6. Now, exponents come next. A negative times a negative is always a positive. A negative times a negative is always a positive. So a negative 12 squared is a positive 144. If you used your calculators and got a negative, you did not put parentheses around the negative 12. If you are using the new calculators, you must have parentheses around the negative 12 so that it knows to square negative 12, which is a negative times a negative. Next, we multiply 4 times 6, which is 24, and 144 minus 24 is 120. So number 1 was 120. Now again, I'm showing every line step by step. You don't have to show me every piece of that. You might skip some steps in there. Just know that on a test, if I'm grading you and you make a mistake, the more work you show, the more partial points you can earn. So everything you see is only me helping you earn those partial points. In number 2, everywhere you have an x, you're going to replace it with a negative 2. Everywhere you have a y, you're going to replace with a 5. So now I have 7, negative 2, minus 3, negative 2, times 5. Multiply left to right, you get negative 14. A negative times a negative is a positive 6. Negative 14 plus 30 gives a positive 16. In number 3, you have 4 plus negative 2 divided by 4. So again, order of operations, say division comes first. So I get 4 plus negative 1/2, which is really the same as 4 minus 1/2, which is 3.5. If you had it as a fraction, it's 7/2. Number 4, you have 3. X is 4, so it's 3 times 4. Minus 4. Y is negative 2. Plus X, which is 4. Minus a minus. So a minus turns to a positive. It's also kind of like saying negative 1 times negative 2. So a negative times a negative becomes a positive. We're going to multiply these in sections. So 3 times 4 is 12. Negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. The plus 4 tags along. And negative 1 times negative 2, or a minus becomes a positive 2. Now we're just going to add left to right. So 12 plus 8 is 20. 20 plus 4 is 24. 24 plus 2 is 26. And number 5, x is 4 plus 2 times 4 divided by negative 2 minus 2 times negative 2. Left to right, you start by multiplying. Then dividing. 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. And then we multiply at the end. A plus, a minus just turns to a negative. That's a habit you want to get into. You don't want to write a plus minus. You want to just transform it to subtraction. Because technically you're adding a negative or subtracting 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. So our final answer is 4. And then down at the bottom, this one is really more for making sure we can type, sorry, it's at the top of your page. We can type into the calculator. So this is really like, can you enter this on a calculator correctly? So in letter C, it's a negative 3. So if you're replacing that negative 3 needs to be inside parentheses. Minus 5 squared. Because technically this is negative 3 times negative 3 minus 5 times 5. So here I have 2 negatives, which becomes a positive 9. Here, 2 positives, so it's minus 25. So we get negative 16. In 7, you have negative 3, parentheses, 3 minus 5 minus negative 3 squared. Here's where students tend to make a mistake. This is not a minus because technically that's negative 3 multiple times. So technically there are 3 negatives, not 2. And again, order of operations says that you should square before you subtract or multiply. So the order of operations says I should square that negative 3 first. So that's the first thing I should do in this problem. I can also do my parentheses. So 3 minus 5 is negative 2. Minus negative 3 squared which is a positive 9, but the subtraction sign stays. A negative times a negative is a positive 6. So we get negative 3. In number 8, it's negative 5 squared minus 4. 5 minus 2 times negative 3. So order of operations, say we square first. That negative is on the outside, so it's a negative 25 because you're squaring 5, which is positive. Minus 4, clear up inside your parentheses. So it's 5, a negative 2 times a negative 3 is a positive 6. We need to add the 5 and the 6 together to get 11. Then I need to multiply the 4 and the 11. And then subtract negative 25 and negative 44. And we get a negative 69. This is a problem that we consistently have issues and errors with because people have a tendency to group together these before they multiply. And again, subtraction and addition is last. Any questions on any of those three? Okay. The last thing we're going to look at is, again, just being able to understand word problems. So it says we have the expression negative 0.08 y squared plus 3y modeling the percent of voters in a town. In the expression, the year 1990 represents the 0 year. Yes. Okay, but never mind. We'll just do our homework. So your homework is the next page in that packet. So what word problem do you have? Okay, I know what you have. Go to it. Stay there. I have it. It's just a couple slides over. That's right. I deleted a section of your notes. I'll just hang on a blank page. And it's underneath. All right, so we have to find our volume. So you have a formula 1/3 pi r squared h. Hopefully you remember that from geometry. It says find the volume. So we're looking for V given the radius is 75 and the height is 225. So for a formula, all we are doing is plugging in. So volume would equal 1/3 pi 75 squared times 225. And again, you just need to follow your order of operations, which say to square 75 before you multiply. So you'd use your calculator. 75 squared is 5,625. And then you could multiply all of these together. So on your calculator, you'd put in parentheses 1 divided by 3 times 5625 times 225, and you get 421,875 pi. If you multiply that by pi, then you'd have 132,5359.401. I'm okay with either answer. Volume is meters cubed. Volume is meters cubed. And that should make sense because it's radius squared, which would be meters times meters, and the height, which is meters. Okay, now your homework is that next page in the packet.